Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Poland, and I'm a partner at the law firm of Stafford Rosenbaum and chair of the DMI Board of Directors. Thank you for joining us for our virtual August What's Up Downtown breakfast. Before we start this morning's program, I would like to read a statement on behalf of Downtown Madison, Inc. Earlier this week, 3 months to the day after George Floyd's killing, we witnessed the brutal point-blank shooting of Jacob Blake by a police officer in Kenosha. Once again, law enforcement failed to serve and protect our Black community, a failing that we have seen repeatedly on our TV screens and in the headlines of our newspapers. It is a failing that is all too familiar to our Black members, colleagues, friends, and neighbors. Wisconsin officials and law enforcement must demonstrate that they are committed to real transparency, justice, and change. We stand in solidarity with the peaceful protesters working to make that change. We stand with Governor Evers' call for a special session to address this issue head on. And as we grieve those failings by law enforcement, we also grieve failings by our larger community to ensure that our communities of color are included in the economic prosperity, educational opportunities, and other benefits that we have created right here in Madison. Even as we work to rebuild our businesses in downtown Madison that have been devastated in recent months by the effects of the pandemic and physical destruction, we recognize that to have sustained economic prosperity in the future requires that we act now to ensure that our efforts to rebuild are inclusive, equitable, and just. DMI is committed to working with those who have not felt invited, included, and welcomed downtown to create meaningful and lasting change. We stand ready to listen, learn, and leverage, and hope that each and every one of you will join us in this work. It is crucial to our ability to survive and thrive together as a downtown community. For this morning's program, we are pleased to welcome Brad Binkowski, Principal at Urban Land Interests, to talk about the current state and future challenges and opportunities of real estate and development in downtown Madison. Brad and ULI have been so deeply involved in the evolution of our downtown and are such an integral part of it that there is no one better positioned to reflect on this topic than Brad. As we start out today's event, on behalf of the DMI Board of Directors, I would like to thank and recognize several DMI board members who have recently left our board. Thank you to Leslie Urantia, who served first as a DMI board member when she was the Director of Community Relations at UW-Madison, and then as a board member after being appointed Deputy Mayor for the City of Madison. Thank you also to Len DeVasher, who served on the DMI board first as the Wisconsin Region CEO of Old National Bank, and then as Vice President of Resource Development for United Way of Dane County. And thanks as well to Jackson Fonder, who served on the board as the President and CEO of Catholic Charities of Madison. Our community is a better place because of their contributions, and we can't thank them enough for their dedication and service to DMI and to downtown Madison. Next, I would like to thank all of our sponsors for today's event. Thank you to major series sponsor Whipfly LLP, supporting series sponsors Ho-Chunk Gaming Madison, Michael Best and Friedrich, and State Bank of Cross Plains, and special contributors the Edgewater Hotel and UW Health, Unity Point Health Meritor, and Quartz for their support of DMI and downtown Madison. And thank you to Urban Land Interests for participating as today's monthly sponsor. We greatly appreciate ULI for their support of today's program and for all they do for DMI and for our downtown. We look forward to hearing from Brad shortly. Before we do, I would like to welcome Anita Mohammed, representing our major sponsor, Whipfly LLP, to briefly say a few words. Anita will be followed by DMI President Jason Ilstrup to introduce our speaker this morning. Thank you and welcome, Anita.
Good morning. My name is Anita Mohammed, and I'm a partner with Whipfly LLP and member of the DMI Board of Directors. Whipfly is pleased to participate as the major sponsor of the DMI What's Up Downtown Breakfast Series. Thank you for joining us this morning. As a multidiscipline professional services firm, Whipfly delivers effective, personalized services to help companies and organizations like yours through these trying times to help create lasting positive impact. We're here to help leaders like you navigate the ever-changing economic environment and we invite you to visit whipley.com for industry-specific insights for financial institutions, construction and real estate, nonprofits, and more. Thank you for joining today's program, and I hope you are all safe and well.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well, and hope you, most importantly, you're staying healthy. Thank you again for joining us at another virtual What's Up Downtown breakfast. Thank you to Doug and the board of directors for your leadership in these difficult times. We on the staff and the whole team at DMI are very thankful. And thank you as well to Anita and the team at Whipley and all of our sponsors, including ULI, for helping us make this happen. We would not be here without you all. I want to take a quick second to say a personal thank you to the 3 board members that have left our board in the last few months, to Leslie, to Len, and to Jackson. A personal thank you for all the work you've done for downtown. You were fantastic mentors for me personally, and I cannot thank you enough for the countless hours you gave to the organization and to downtown. We wish you all the best of luck in all 3 of your new ventures. We're very excited for today's presentation. We have someone that has given so much himself to downtown. He and his company have really done an amazing job of creating vitality and energy in downtown Madison. Today is a presentation, but we also want it to be a conversation. So we're asking for your questions for Brad. We're going to have time at the end of the event. If you look down at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A function. Please submit your questions in the Q&A function. Just type the questions in, and then I will ask them at the end to Brad. So again, we want this to be a conversation, so please do ask your questions in the Q&A section. Brad Binkowski co-founded Urban Land Interest in 1974 with his partner, Tom Newyear. ULI's mission is to create and sustain exceptional buildings and tenant relationships that strengthen our communities. When ULI started developing the Capitol Square in the early 1980s, downtown was almost deserted. There were no shops, restaurants, office buildings, or new apartments. The investments that were made in downtown over the last 40 years have created life, vitality, and energy in this special place. Before COVID-19, the unique quality of life that had been created in downtown Madison was attracting new technology firms. People coming downtown to meet with others, to work, to live, to play, to enjoy special events. With the pandemic and the property damage, though, downtown is suffering and moving backwards. Today, downtown is at a dangerous inflection point, and Brad is going to discuss this. Brad, good morning. Hope you're doing well.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you all for inviting me to talk a little bit about a subject that's obviously been the focal point of what I've done for the last 30 or 40 years. Downtown Madison is a special place, and it's, by the way, at a very special point in going forward into the future. Let me start out by saying that I fully sympathize and support the issues raised by the recent protests. I think Black society has not been advanced to the degree that it needs to be to create something that can be durable and positive. Black Lives Matter appropriately points out that all too often the police overreact and don't represent the values that we as a society ought to hold near and dear and expect everyone to live up to. I think that there are times in history where movements to precipitate social change, happen and are appropriate and are effective. Look back to what Martin Luther King led in the in the 60s for instituting Black voting rights, and the leadership and the restraint that he showed. They changed society in a positive way, and that change is not yet done, and it's not yet gone far enough. But I'm hopeful that it will, and we support it. On the other hand, all of us, have different roles in society. Some of us choose to run for public office and become elected officials, and they have a special responsibility to both reflect their constituents' needs, their constituents' desires, and to guide us into the future and to advocate, effective change. Some of us, have spend our time with organizations like DMI, advocating for improvements to a specific area or a specific topic. And that's a really important, mission and needs to continue. Some of us, have a talent to build and develop and see an opportunity to take a piece of property that's been or an area that's been deserted and try and make it into something that contributes to making a better community. And that's what we've really tried to do. When I look back and see what the square was when we started and where others started, it wasn't just us. It was the city with the Monona Terrace and other commitment. We created a pretty special place pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, downtown Madison was firing on a lot of cylinders and attracting, people who are going to be the future of our community into it. Tech firms were because we have such a strong educated technology workforce, the highest percentage of educated millennials of any of the top 50 markets in the U.S. live in Madison. We're coming here so that they could find workers, and they were coming here with a strong commitment to social activism and change. Zendesk partnered with a number of organizations, to share their employees' times and treasures and effort. And that's a really good thing. Would downtown Madison be better if it hadn't been an environment that attracted Zendesk and a commitment to 105,000 square feet and hopefully to contribute to continue to attract more technology firms? I don't think so. Our market, for law firms and lobbyists and, has been relatively stagnant. They aren't leaving, but they aren't also a growth engine. To position downtown to take the advantage of the opportunity to grow has taken an awful lot of hard work and a lot of public support and a lot of advocacy from a whole bunch of groups. Unfortunately, with the recent damage, we had 44 windows broken on Monday night by people who I think were not down here to advocate for social change. It was a small group of people who really were intent on damaging and creating destruction, and who are actually sort of, detracting from the message at hand. And if you want to put the slide up, Madeline, today, we have 44, one of our buildings, US Bank Plaza, that is essentially boarded up from sidewalk to sidewalk. Here's a close-up view. In the background, you can see 33's Main boarded up. 44 windows broken with somebody who had a crowbar just walking across the sidewalk, when the bank wasn't really doing anything. I guess it's a symbol of something, but has resulted in this downtown looking worse today than it was in 1980 when we started focusing our development efforts here. And we have tenants who are actively talking about leaving downtown because they don't feel safe. They don't feel like this is a place that they want to be anymore. They would rather be in a more sterile, cornfield someplace or working from home. And that's a really tragic, turn of events, because the momentum that you create in a community, the expectation that the future is going to be, better, is a really necessary preamble to making the commitment and the investment that I'm going to be down here, and I'm going to be part of the people who use the restaurants that are struggling to survive today. I want to invite my friends down here. I want to come down here to Concerts on the Square and all of the activities where it's the best stage in Wisconsin. Unfortunately, that stage also is a stage for calling attention to protests. And I have no problem with protests. In fact, I support, what the aims of Black Lives Matter are completely. But there is a tipping point where when protests evolve into destruction, that we as a city and that our elected officials can't accept. It's never right to damage, buildings and try and just rip at the fabric of what made downtown great. Because if you do, and if it doesn't stop, then downtown's going to regress and it's going to go backwards. And At the same time that we were advocating for a major new building on the American Exchange block, something that would have involved 840 parking stalls, 300,000 feet. It's been extremely well received by the Landmarks Commission, the Capital Neighborhoods, Inc., by the city. It really calls into question whether or not we should spend any time or waste any energy advancing a major project like that, something that will probably cost $140 million by the time it's done. It'll generate significant tax revenue that the city needs to both plug its hole and be able to reach out and do more, funding of social programs and things that are important to elevate all aspects of our community. When you don't have an environment that precipitates long-term investing, long-term, commitments from people who want to be downtown, then we've lost, and unfortunately we've lost something that may be hard to recover. And I think what I'm reflecting on, and as I got up on 5 o'clock on Tuesday morning and went downtown and saw the extent of the damage, is how did it get to this point? Peaceful protest is absolutely something that we as a community, that we as a society, that we as individuals ought to be completely supportive of, and we ought to do our best to implement them, their goals. On the other hand, excusing violence and mixing violence and destruction, wanton destruction of property, and connecting it to the protest movement hurts everyone. Martin Luther King repudiated that, back in the 60s. His daughter, in an interview on with Jimmy Fallon, talked about how inappropriate it was last night. It's not what needs to happen. The city needs to put a very hard line in the sand saying, if you damage property, if you tear down statues, if you use sledgehammers and crowbars to break into things, you will be arrested, period. And there ought to be very clear repercussions about that. At the same time, as it really promotes and supports and encourages people to show up and peacefully protest to make society better. We have to those two goals, have to coexist, and they have to be, part of the same movement. And on Tuesday night, when they weren't, 440 sheets of plywood, $150,000 worth of damages went up, and 10 calls from tenants saying, I don't want to be part of downtown anymore, were received by us. That we as a company, we as Downtown Madison Inc., we as the city of Madison can't allow that to happen. Our elected officials have to stand up and say enough is enough, and differentiate between lawlessness, wanton property damage, and peaceful protesting. Michael Johnson, Paul Sogwin, Gloria Reyes, Carl Jenkins, a lot of really good people showed up and tried to differentiate between what was legitimate and appropriate and actually really desirable, and where the tipping point of the line was. I don't think that message is yet being amplified enough. I applaud their efforts, couldn't support them more. Thank you for doing that. But that chorus of voices has got to grow. And DMI, is a leading advocate for, downtown Madison. DMI has got to take the lead in saying, that when destruction happens, we have, as a community, have no tolerance for it, and it is no part of being incorporated into a protest movement. I hope that we get a lot of other people standing up and adding to the chorus of voices that talk about how critical a vital downtown is to our community, how much resources it generates to allow us to attack all kinds of other social issues. But so far, at least, that chorus of voices isn't strong enough. It's not drowning out the people who are intent on damage, and we're not responding, quickly enough. I am not a supporter of our current, national administration. I think the call to law and order is as a party platform, unfortunately, is going to resonate if destruction continues. I think that we have to find a better way to ensure that peaceful protests work in our community, and that we can encourage people to emerge from COVID, to come back into buildings, to reinvest in stores that are damaged. We have to find a way where the community will support that. And it's not just the community of private fundraisers, it's the city of Madison community who needs to recognize that their responsibility to help people repair. 40% of the shops that were damaged on State Street are operated by people of color who had invested everything in their store, who probably aren't going to come back because they don't have the resources. That would be a tragic loss. So my call to action is, I think, let's have a unified chorus of voice supporting social change, absolutely drawing a line on the sand that violence against buildings, people is not acceptable and will be dealt with immediately and strongly. And let's hopefully get past this in a way where people can think about making investments and improvements to downtown that will continue to make it better. Right now, we don't have that environment. I think that unfortunately, we don't know when it's going to, and if it's going to be reestablished. I'm optimistic, but it's going to take a lot of work from a lot of people. And it's going to take real leadership from the public sector that unfortunately I'm not yet seeing.
Brad, thank you very much for your continued efforts to make downtown better. A couple of questions we already have coming in. Remember, if you have questions for Brad this morning, please enter them into the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and then we will ask those questions there. One of the first questions that we have is, say things calmed down. Last night was calm. What do you think, what action should take place to make sure that we have a strong, vibrant, and inclusive downtown? What should we be working on both short and long term?
Well, I think first of all, if one night doesn't create a trend or a pattern, and unfortunately, just like we saw in Kenosha, an event happens that nobody controls. It's not related to Madison, and it creates all kinds of effective repercussions. And damage occurs all across the country. I think you need to reestablish first a safe environment where again, violence against properties, buildings is not tolerated. It's got to be removed. And once that's happened, we've been working with our restaurant tenants who are decimated. A lot of vitality and a lot of energy are created by people who took the risk of opening a restaurant where outdoor seating, the streetery program that DMI and the bid board set up has been extraordinarily effective. We can actually look at our parking counts in the evening and weekends and see them increasing. I wish we had a longer warm season in front of us, but as fall comes, I think we're going to be, our restaurant tenants are going to be really challenged. But right now, most of them are boarded up. Most of them are closed. There are very few that are open. We need to reopen downtown and with a commitment to make sure that it stays open. And then, we can look at how we can work with, various communities to help them create a stakeholder interest in the downtown where they can, put their work and their effort and their time into establishing something that will make them, successful and I'd like to see that. I think the money the city is talking about, allocating to communities of color could be spent in a whole series of ways. I think there's an opportunity to create a major funding mechanism that, would capture some of the potential investments that, could materialize in downtown, and using a lot of the funds that are generated from a major TID district, not so much to benefit those projects, but to benefit downtown, as a whole. And unfortunately, I don't think the city council today is going to allocate money to creating a bid district that might generate revenue that could be used to reimagine what downtown should be. And I think that a vision of the future, a real vision of the future that makes it better than what we have, and figuring out the means to get there is the way we create the rising tide that hopefully will lift a lot of people, along with us. But I don't believe that we have an opportunity to establish the dialogue and advocate for, a TID district that could create the engine that could fund some of the improvements that ought to be considered. State Street, particularly, I think is in need of a complete overhaul. And personally, I think buses need to get off of State Street, and we need to turn that into a stronger pedestrian environment. Look at the impact of streetery and the energy, that outdoor dining brings. And if we could take the streetery opportunity and make it permanent, and get rid of diagonal parking stalls, a limited number. And where we have, an appropriate flat outdoor seating area, make it permanent for tables so that we can, again, expand the life and energy of downtown. That would be a great thing. I mean, there are all kinds of efforts I think we can look at doing that will make downtown better, but you have to have a council, and you have to, that you can interact with to implement a vision. You have to have the mayoral leadership to do that. And you have to have the private sector leadership to help define what that vision should be and make it compelling. And I think ultimately that has to happen before we're going to see a lot of new economic opportunity that can lift communities of color and generate the tax increment, or not the tax increment, the actual annual taxes necessary to create the funding to implement a lot of programs.
A great follow-up question from the audience is, how do we create that unified message where we have a chorus of voices coming together? To whom should we direct our message to? What leaders? The mayor, alders? Many of us feel like we're in a state of paralysis, which is what I think you just discussed. Other citizens and communities and alders representing other areas of the city don't seem to care about downtown and its role in making Madison a vibrant place. So how do we create that unified message and that chorus of voices coming together saying we need a vibrant and inclusive downtown?
I honestly don't know. I'm not a politician. I've never run for office. I think that I can see things that don't exist when it comes to real estate and buildings that could help contribute. I wish I could answer that question. I know it's going to be people who are speaking more strongly about the specific issues of downtown, and not wrapping everything up into the current social protests. I think they're different political objectives that we have, and when one becomes more important than the other, the other gets diluted. They're equally important but different. And I think having a separate conversation about the future of Madison and what it ought to be, and how it should come about, is critically important. And again, you could set up a small task force. You could set up a small group. You could set up you could hire planners. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that you really need a chorus of voices of people who have the commitment, the expertise, and the vision to put something on the table that can get tested. And unfortunately, it's not going to apply to every objective that the politicians, the mayor, the council has. It can't. There's not one solution that can address every concern. And if a plan's attacked because it doesn't do everything, well, then so be it, because it can't do everything. But plans made in different areas, and given the responsibility to different areas that can come together in the context of what ought to be done, I think is the only solution. So, I'd be happy to be part of a task force looking at what we can do to make downtown Madison better. Downtown Madison being State Street and the Capitol Square. We've invested in housing because we think housing is really an important corollary to office space. We've brought restaurants by doing underground parking. We brought restaurants and shops to every storefront, sidewalk front that we can, because we think it's important. I can contribute in an area. And certainly I hope we can create an economic engine that would drive a lot of other stuff. But it's a chorus of voices focusing on 4 or 5 different areas. And you have to be able to move ahead effectively each of those areas without waiting for all of them to move at the same point. There's a time where tenants may be looking for space, and we have a number of big tenants that potentially could look for space. If they're afraid of downtown and they go outside of downtown, we've lost that opportunity for the next 30 years, and we're not going to get it back. So, we can't be bound up by needing to do everything before we do anything. We have to look at what's realistic, where we have the means to make a difference, focus on that at the same time that others are focusing on areas where they can do the same.
And I think, one thing that people should note on this call is that you have been, and we've been supportive of a group that started already downtown, of a diverse group of community leaders and stakeholders really looking at downtown, taking this moment for really reimagining what downtown looks like. And you have been supportive of that, really this and both concept of creating a vibrant and great quality life downtown, but also making sure that we have an equitable and inclusive downtown for everyone. So we're really thankful for your work there. One question from the audience is, you mentioned supporting social change. What does that look like specifically downtown for you?
Well, it means you support. I certainly support and would lend my name to the issues that a lot of the protesters or peaceful protesters are raising. I think that we have 150 employees. We intentionally look out and try and recruit people that we can bring into the company and have advanced them throughout to positions of more responsibility to create an opportunity for them to do better for their families, reaching out and hiring people who are willing to work and do a good job and have values that are consistent with our values is something that we've been doing as a company for the last 30 years. We've got to continue doing that. We've got to create advancement opportunities for people in the company every chance we get, so that again they can do more, they can realize their potential. But I think honestly, Jason, my biggest contribution will be creating developments that drive up the city of Madison's tax base, that give the city the resources to do more, to reach out to communities of color with efforts led by people that are really focused on that and understand it. Findorf has spent a lot of time, one of our construction partners, and Vogel have spent a lot of time reaching out to communities of color, trying to bring more people into the trades and creating opportunity. It's everything you can do every day to provide a ladder to have people become more successful. It's mentoring and sharing your wisdom or time or knowledge with people that want to reach out and ask for it, to help them understand how to overcome the challenges that they affect. When I was starting out in Madison, I volunteered for a chamber group that did consulting with businesses that were starting and trying to succeed, and we basically worked with them for a 3 or 4 year period to try and help them get more successful. The mentoring program was really important. There are all kinds of initiatives, but doing what we all do, a restaurateur running his business and opening it and keeping it open and making enough money to survive contributes to creating a more socially just world. Because they're hiring staff that are working and have responsibilities that the salary that they're making allows them to work. Should we raise the minimum wage? I think that's a great idea. Again, I can't advocate for that because I don't employ enough people and I'm not a lobbyist or a politician. I'd support it. We need to do a whole bunch of different things, but it's reopening up downtown. It starts with The violence and damage ends today. If we can't make that the first step, and the chorus, that the loudest chorus that we hear isn't focused on that today, and we see damage continuing, then put me down as extremely pessimistic that any of the rest of the steps that are going to could potentially happen to make a difference will really happen. The loudest voices and the first voices have got to acknowledge the legitimacy of peaceful protest and stop. I mean, and I mean just stop the damage being caused by people who really aren't here to protest, who are just here to, to disrupt. Police not wearing body cams, I don't understand. I mean, if we can record who's doing what and arrest them after the fact, I mean, that just makes sense to me. But it's stopping the damage and destruction is step one. After that happens, and by the way, only if that happens, are we going to be able to advance into the broader list of things that need to be addressed.
Another question from the audience. How do we get alders to think beyond just their districts, to realize that State Street and downtown supports all of Madison?
Well, I think it's a very simple economic, understanding. And Emily Mail, who's been working tirelessly along with Tiffany on the bid board, gave me an analysis a while ago, and I think Emily, I probably don't have this exactly right, but I think that the downtown core generates 10% or more of the real estate taxes paid by the entire city of Madison. 10%. And the city of Madison's budget is support is 73% generated by real estate taxes. It shows you how incredibly important in reinvesting in a community, generating tax revenue is. And downtown has the highest density of buildings, and which means Block 89, I still think, is the highest tax revenue generating block of any in the city. And so, I think understanding that if downtown goes south, and if the property values downtown decrease, and if buildings are vacant, that this is going to have a real direct and immediate impact on the city of Madison's operating budget is the starting point. If you cut 10% of your tax base, or see 10% of your tax base going down year to year, and by the way, that's a very clear potential. It's going to have major repercussions on the city laying off staff, cutting program support, and struggling, to balance the budget. If we don't see new investment, you won't see new initiatives like BRT and expanded social programming be viable, because there won't be the basis to support those things. So this is all part of a complicated, interrelated economic spider web of interests that all come together to support what we do. And that's that net, the spider web net of people doing different things, is what links the community together and makes everything possible. When you start tearing apart the web of the spider web and things start dangling there, all of a sudden you don't have that support and you don't have the structure that you need to go forward.
One of the things you discussed a few minutes ago was development downtown. I think it's important that you brought up a tax increment district and what that potentially could mean for the future of downtown. We've seen a few large projects come through, including the Keller Families project and your own American Exchange Bank block project. How important are projects like those and others that are on the drawing board for downtown important right now more than ever, particularly when it comes to COVID and getting people back to work and getting vibrancy back downtown? How important are these development projects? And I think it'd be great to talk a little more about your important American Exchange project as well.
Well, I think it's critically important at a time when COVID was decimating, the number of people coming to work downtown. We probably have 30% of normal traffic in our buildings. Downtown office tenants up until the damage and the kind of rioting were pretty optimistic that we would emerge from COVID sometime in late winter, early spring, and are hanging in there. Our restaurant retail market has been dying, and my heart goes out to people that are suffering and trying to make things work. And our parking revenue is non-existent because people aren't coming to work. But when I look at investing in a time where downtown needs more people who are committed to the future, who will come in here and establish offices and move into houses, I think investing is in the challenging times that we see now is critically important, because an investment is something where you're building to a future that doesn't exist today. If the future of the American Exchange block is 55%, surface parking and an abandoned bank drive up and a couple of tents from Heritage Cafe back in a small planting area, that's a pretty dismal future. On the other hand, if we could bring off the project that we've envisioned, which is 840 stalls of underground parking, which we desperately need, which, by the way, will hopefully create the tenants that will support other modes of transportation and the mayor's objectives, that will take where 770 feet of frontage where there's one retail store today, and add 8 or 9 stores totaling 24,000 square feet of space, so that the sidewalks are active, that can create big, attractive open space that can appeal to technology firms or firms that need large floor plates, and that can respectfully rise up and create a building that's really exciting above the 3- and 4-story buildings that are built on the sidewalk, be above a completely redone American Exchange Bank building. Then I think we're creating something where people can have an option to locate downtown. And if we can present an option, by the way, before COVID, we were 97% full in our office space. Our apartments were 100% full. So there was a good launching pad to think that we could attract other people. COVID threw a kink into that, obviously. But COVID will be solved. We will emerge, and we will know how to deal with it. And you need a project that's ready to go to attract new people coming in. Growth is critical. So I think that investing now, creating space where there wasn't much, that can attract the educated millennials that are clearly going to be the future of this market and firms that employ them, making downtown into a really strong technology presence where the quality of life that is available that millennials and others want is critically important. We have to be willing to invest in the future and change what exists today if we're going to emerge from this. And we're willing to do it. We just can't create the public safety issues and address the public safety issues by ourselves. That could destroy the opportunity to advance major investments. There is a way to link a number of TID districts to projects that potentially could raise $100 million, that would be available to support, improvements in the downtown. What the vision of what those improvements might be, how they combine together to create a more vibrant downtown, that's where the vision thing comes in. I think I know how to provide the money, and if the city would support creating TID districts that don't dramatically benefit the projects that are being built but are really used to benefit the downtown in whole, I think there's a formula and a path forward, and I think it's very viable and very possible to do it. And I've been talking with Mike Revere and others, city staff about it. Right now, I don't believe we have the political will on the council to, invest in a lot of money in downtown, without creating an equal and matching investment in other communities of color, which I can't speak for the alders. All I know is if we build one part of the community as strong as we can, that doesn't exclude other parts, and it actually, the revenues that we create will make it possible to reach out and do things for broader groups.
Another question from the audience: how can we activate others in the business community? In years gone by, one would look to leadership from the publishers of newspapers, large banks, major corporations, CEOs, whatnot. It seems today that too many of our significant businesses are, and possible leaders are, organizations are without state ties and ownership. They may not be here. How do we activate the local people who are making the money here and then be the leaders? How do we activate that business community overall in Madison to help with these issues?
The only way I know how to do it is to talk to people and get support and to get people to show up. I think, Jason, when you look at the extraordinary outpouring of public support that came about, including the chamber and DMI's positions, earlier this spring when we were starting the American Exchange development, and it looked like we had a pretty significant hurdle in our path, namely we had to demolish an old, unfortunately, landmark building, Center 7, that never should have been landmarked to begin with. That coalition of interest that was built was extraordinarily powerful. 94 people showed up and talked in favor of what we were doing, even though the project was far more preliminary than it is today. It's gotten far better as we've continued to work on it. But 94 people spoke in favor of it, and 2 people were opposed to it. I think that's a chorus of voice that fundamentally changed the dialogue and allowed the project to go into its normal public approval. That leadership didn't come from the city. It came from the chorus of voices of people that said, it's time to do this, who responded to a vision that we built and we created and that we shared. And I think, I think we have to develop, concepts that people can get behind and support. I think vision is a hard thing. Designing by committee is always difficult because end up with a whole bunch of different interests. But I think if a small group can articulate a vision that people, that can be held up to the light of day, and that people can say, boy, this is better, and we ought to support it. And that's the only way forward that I know. I don't think we will have the Oscar Mayers of the world who've been here forever and have a big commitment to our community. The Bolts family, there's been a lot of leadership. The Frauchi family, Kevin Conroy and Exact Sciences. We have some really strong leadership. It's evolving. It's changing. It's different today. We have to reach out and establish a new coalition of people who can stand up and say, this is something we should do, and this is something we really want the political leadership of the community to get behind and support. And I think when the chorus of voices is strong enough, and what you're trying to do is finite enough, there's a chance that we could create that. I think we have to take that chance, and we have to try.
Another question from the audience, got time for a couple more here, is are you and your company, ULI, committed to making downtown Madison an equitable, inclusive, and diverse place, welcoming place for everyone? And how are you committed to that?
Well, we're committed to it by creating the space that creates the opportunity to have very different businesses succeed. We've been nurturing small businesses with startup ideas that for a long time. We've been structuring very flexible, low cost office leases with our emerging technology tenants who have an idea, don't have a lot of money, and want to try and make something work. We're creating economic partnerships with a whole variety of people. And again, I think that's something that everyone has to do, not one company, not one person. It's got to be a shared value and a shared commitment. We need to be a part of that effort, and we will be. who was it? Renee Moe, I think, made the comment last night about how much support the United Way got from people around the square, the Tocqueville Society, and the United Way's done a really good job of creating metrics and evaluating how they can help. Organizations like the Road Home, helping people emerge from homelessness and giving to them, and having staff time. So some of our staff have spent years supporting the Road Home, serving on the board, and spending their time. When I look at the work that Emily Mail's doing, Emily's been working with us for 13 years. She was hired as a kind of an accounting clerk, trying to figure out how we could figure out what our parking revenues were and controls were. And Emily's grown up to be just a really, essential person. She and Tiffany Kenny have been leading all of the bid board, efforts, and have done an extraordinarily effective job of that. It's providing people and encouraging people to step outside of their normal jobs and give back to the community and provide leadership in areas. One of our employees was on the board of directors of the YMCA for a number of years. Matt Darga, who's unfortunately no longer with us, but Matt continues his role. He came to me one day and said, "Brad, I've been asked to do this. What do you think? It's going to take a lot of time." And I said, "Matt, one of our visions, our mission, vision, values is that we're giving back to the community to make the community a better place. Your involvement with the Y is going to do that. And it's really important." I was on the board of the Kids Fund, for 15 years, trying to help organizations who are struggling to provide the services that they need to. It's all of those efforts, that go into giving back to the community and making the community stronger and achieving the goals that a lot of the protesters, are pointing out. But again, without stopping damage, without creating an environment where you can plan for the future, all of this is at risk.
I think you're right. It's up to all of us downtown, including downtown Madison, to do everything they can to identify and confront and dismantle those structural and cultural barriers that deprive everyone from the opportunity to have a meaningful experience downtown. So absolutely, DMI has to be on that journey as well. The last question we have here is how should we prioritize and preserve our cultural institutions that make downtown so vibrant, such as the Overture Center, Madison Children's Museum, some of these major institutions that bring people down. How do we prioritize and preserve those institutions?
Make downtown safe and keep downtown safe, because without downtown being safe, people aren't going to come down and take advantage of the programming opportunities that they have. Overture's boarded up completely, and obviously it's not doing anything. It's not doing anything, because of COVID, but now it's got a double-edged sword. It can't open, because of the damage and the destruction of the glass. We have to get to a point where we, once again, as a community, feel safe. COVID will pass. Science will find a way. I'm convinced, and I hope, desperately, and I hope it's sooner than later. Science will find a way to overcome the challenges of COVID. And if we're smart about, social distancing, and we're smart about limiting outbreaks, we already saw life and activity start to return. But if we don't feel safe, if we have to have a whole, downtown of boarded up buildings, because we see periodic outbreaks of violence that are going to continue, game over. We have to make the community safe. We have to create a place and an opportunity where people want to come together. I predict that after COVID is solved, that there is such a huge unmet need for social interaction that people are going to, as soon as they become comfortable, we're going to see the sidewalks, exploding with people and people enjoying the company of each other. We have a desperate need for human interaction, and I hope that we see it reestablished soon.
I could not agree more with you there. The power of proximity is real. And it does help create new ideas, new businesses, and so much of that happens in downtown Madison. We can't thank ULI enough for their support, and we're eager to work with you guys over the next few years on both those short and long-term goals to make sure that downtown Madison is a vibrant economic place, but also and a inclusive and welcoming downtown for everyone. So thank you very much to Brad for being here this morning, and for ULI for all the work that they've done throughout the last 40 years here in downtown. We are very thankful. There are many challenges and opportunities ahead of us, and DMI looks forward to working with ULI on many of those opportunities. We want to make sure that we wrap up and say thank you to our sponsors here today. Thank you to Whipley, our series sponsor, Whipley LLP, Ho-Chunk Gaming Madison, Michael Best and Friedrich, State Bank of Cross Plains, ULI, thank you for your continued sponsorship and your sponsorship today. The Edgewater Hotel, UW Health, Unity Point Health Meritor, and Courts. We appreciate everyone attending today. This morning, know that we have a whole series of other events coming over the next few weeks. Please go to our website for all of the different virtual meetings that we have available. Lots of things happening here soon, including our annual dinner on September 21st. We'd love for you to fill out a survey at the end of this. Once you close down, you'll receive a survey. Please, your feedback does matter to us on this event and all others. But most of all, we want you to remain healthy and remain safe during these difficult times. Please let us know if there's any way we can help. And thank you for being here. Thank you and have a good day.